Have you ever considered the possibility that everything you've been taught about money is completely wrong, wildly mistaken? Think about it. Billions of people spend their entire lives studying, working hard, sacrificing time, health, and family. Yet they still die without ever experiencing true prosperity. Does that make sense? Of course not. The most absurd part is realizing that the more they struggle, the more scarcity they seem to attract. I'm not talking about theory. I'm talking about the invisible law that governs every inch of the universe. A law that is working within you right now, even if you don't perceive it. And today, I will reveal 12 clear steps to retrain your mindset and attract prosperity rapidly. Have you ever noticed how certain phrases we hear from childhood become absolute truths within us, even if they've never been questioned? Money doesn't grow on trees. To succeed in life, you must suffer. We weren't born to be rich. These words repeat generation after generation and end up transforming into silent programming that shapes our relationship with money. It's not a conscious choice. It's something that settles into the subconscious and begins to control our decisions, attitudes, and even how we react to opportunities. You might think that your difficulty in prospering comes from a lack of education, contacts, or luck. But in reality, the root lies in this invisible conditioning that dictates how much you believe you deserve and how much you allow yourself to receive. It's like software running in the background. You don't see it, but it's controlling the entire system. That's why it doesn't matter how many extra hours you work, how many degrees you accumulate, or how much willpower you pour into your projects. If the installed programming is one of scarcity, the final result will always be the same. Have you noticed how many people manage to increase their earnings for a while but soon return to a tight financial situation? This happens because they haven't changed the program. They've only changed the scenery. And when the program isn't rewritten, sooner or later it brings back the same pattern. I myself lived this cycle firsthand. I spent years believing that the only way to climb out of the hole was to work harder. Always tired, always chasing, and never truly moving forward. No matter how much money came in, it seemed something always went wrong. An unexpected expense, a new debt, a loss I couldn't avoid. It was only when I began to question these deep-seated beliefs, these phrases that echoed within me, that I realized the problem wasn't in the world out there, but in the images and ideas I harbored within myself. The subconscious doesn't distinguish between reality and repetition. If you hear every day that money is hard-earned or that it's not for everyone, sooner or later you will vibrate exactly that. And when you vibrate scarcity, life has no choice but to respond with more scarcity. Ask yourself honestly, how many times have you repeated, even without realizing it, that there's never anything left at the end of the month? How many times have you said you don't have a head for business, that you weren't born for it, or that people like you will never get rich? This constant internal dialogue is what creates your financial reality. Modern studies on behavior show that a large portion of our daily decisions are automatic, unconscious. This means that, without realizing it, you might be repeating the same patterns that your parents and grandparents carried throughout their lives, even if rationally you desire different outcomes. The true root of scarcity isn't in the numbers on your bank statement, but in what you believe is possible. Imagine someone who inherits a mindset of lack, but wins millions of dollars in the lottery. Without changing their mental program, in a short time they return to the same place because they haven't learned to vibrate prosperity. They merely received money without being ready for it. This has happened countless times in history, and it's proof that money itself isn't the solution. Your mindset is. So if until today you have felt trapped in this cycle of chasing after things, working hard, and never seeing lasting results, know that it's not the government's fault, or the economy's, or a lack of opportunities. It is the invisible programming that controls your life. And until you question it, until you decide to write a new internal story, the external result will not change. The first step is to recognize this. To recognize that within you there is an old inherited, repeated voice that insists on saying you can't, you don't deserve, you weren't born to prosper. And that voice needs to be silenced. Because only when you replace that pattern, only when you decide to install a new program of abundance, does reality begin to transform in a true and permanent way. Everything in the universe is in constant vibration. Every atom, every cell, every particle carries a frequency, and you are no different. Your thoughts, your emotions, and even your most silent feelings emit a vibration that creates an invisible field around you. This field is like a magnet, and it attracts situations, people, and opportunities that are in harmony with the energy you maintain. When your vibration is one of fear, anxiety, and scarcity, life inevitably responds by bringing more circumstances that reflect exactly that. It's no coincidence that so often you manage to pay off one debt, only to find days later that a new unexpected expense has emerged. This pattern is not bad luck, it's not a punishment, it's the direct manifestation of the frequency you emit. Think of it like a radio station. You can only hear the music that corresponds to the frequency you're tuned into. If your mind is constantly tuned into the channel of worry, of it won't work out, of I'll never succeed, that's the music that will keep playing in your life. That's why even people who overexert themselves, who work themselves to exhaustion, continue to attract more lack, more struggle, and more scarcity. Their vibration isn't aligned with abundance, but with effort, sacrifice, and limitation. I myself spent years without understanding this. I observed people around me who apparently didn't work as much as I did, but achieved much greater results. This consumed me. I wondered, how is it possible? I dedicate more, I put in more hours, I sacrifice more, and yet they seem to prosper with ease. The answer lay in the vibration. They weren't vibrating need, they were vibrating confidence. They weren't vibrating fear of loss, they were vibrating the certainty that there would always be more. This confidence created a natural alignment with situations of prosperity, while I, trapped in the fear of lack, could only attract more of the same. Perhaps you too have experienced that feeling of spinning in circles. You work, you struggle, you chase after things, but every time you believe something will finally be left over, an emergency happens, an unexpected expense, a problem that drains your resources. It's as if you're caught in an invisible cycle. And the truth is, you are. An energetic cycle fed by your dominant vibration. Research shows that emotions like fear and anxiety activate a state of restricted focus in the brain, which prevents us from seeing solutions and opportunities that are right in front of us. In other words, when you vibrate fear, you not only attract more fearful situations, but also become blind to the doors that could change your reality. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine beginning to vibrate abundance even before it manifests. Instead of thinking, I can never pay my bills, you start to feel internally, I am capable, I deserve prosperity, and the right opportunities are coming to me. This vibration opens your eyes to new ideas, makes you notice people who previously went unnoticed, and connects you to circumstances that were there all along, but that your old frequency didn't allow you to perceive. That's how life responds. It doesn't matter where you are, what your profession is, your history, or your current conditions. What determines your next chapter is the vibration you choose to sustain now. And here's an essential point. Your vibration isn't changed by rational thought alone. You can say, I want prosperity all day long, but if deep down you feel fear, worry, and guilt, that's what you continue to emit. Vibration is dictated by the emotion that accompanies the thought. That's why it's so important to cultivate feelings of gratitude, confidence, and certainty. Gratitude, in particular, is one of the most powerful vibrations because it puts you in tune with what is already good in your life, and that alignment makes space for more good things to come. Money is just one of many manifestations of the universe's energy, and just like any energy, it responds to what you transmit. When you vibrate lack, it slips away. When you vibrate abundance, it flows. The question is, which station have you chosen to tune into? There was a day when I was at a complete dead end. I had a bill to pay, and when I opened my wallet, there wasn't enough. This was the kind of situation that before would have sent me into a panic. My heart would race, my mind would start thinking of all possible problems, and I would feel crushed by a sense of powerlessness. But in that moment, I decided to do something different. Instead of vibrating fear, instead of mentally repeating, it won't work out, I chose to trust. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, and affirmed to myself that the money would come, even if I didn't know how. I made sure to feel it in my body, as if the problem were already solved. And then something happened that still impresses me with the clarity of its message. A few hours later, the phone rang. On the other end was someone who had owed me money for years and whom I'd long given up hope of collecting from. Without explanation, she told me she had decided to settle the debt that very day. The amount she sent me was exactly enough to pay the bill that had been worrying me. Some would call it a coincidence, but I've learned to recognize when vibration finds resonance with the universe. It wasn't chance, it was alignment. This episode was a turning point because it showed me in a practical way that my internal frequency has the power to alter external circumstances. Up until then, I believed prosperity depended on physical effort, the right contacts, favorable conditions. But on that day it became clear that when the mind and heart are in tune with abundance, reality responds with precision. It doesn't mean money magically falls from the sky, but that it arrives through unexpected channels, via people and opportunities that were already on the path, just waiting for the energetic permission to manifest. How many times have you found yourself in a similar situation? Accumulated bills, no solution in sight, and suddenly help appears, a delayed payment, an opportunity that seemed impossible. The difference is that often you attribute it to luck or chance, when in reality it's your vibration allowing solutions to enter. The problem is that most of the time, you do the opposite. You panic, you vibrate despair, and that only blocks the way out that could have appeared. When I decided to trust, it was as if I had sent a clear signal to the universe. I am ready to receive. And the universe responded. This is the crucial point. You don't control the how, you don't control the where from, but you control what you transmit. And what you transmit opens or closes doors. My example of the bill paid with unexpected money might seem small, but it was enough for me to understand that this law is real and works on any scale. If it works for a bill of a few $100s, it also works for million-dollar businesses. The only difference lies in the consistency of the vibration. On that day, I learned something that completely changed my relationship with money. It's not about having the visible solution, it's about being aligned with the confidence that the solution will come. Because when you vibrate scarcity, all you can see are problems. But when you vibrate abundance, you start to perceive paths that were previously invisible. This was just the first of many episodes where life proved to me that by changing my energy, I changed my results. And that is the key to any lasting financial transformation. How many people do you know who wake up before the sun rises, work more hours than their bodies can handle, sacrifice weekends, holidays, and time with family, and yet still live trapped in debt, worries, and a lack of perspective? Perhaps you yourself have wondered why, despite putting in so much effort, the results don't appear. And at the same time, it's impossible not to notice people who seem to live more lightly, who work fewer hours, and yet enjoy a life of abundance, financial security, and freedom. It's as if they're playing a completely different game, and indeed they are. The big difference isn't the amount of physical effort, but the quality of the mental and emotional vibration they carry every day. For a long time, I also believed that prosperity was a simple equation of effort. Work more, earn more. But life kept showing me that this formula was wrong. I wore myself out, sacrificed, and yet always seemed to be one step behind. The truth is that when the mind vibrates scarcity, even a salary increase, even an unexpected gain, even a greater opportunity, ends up slipping through your fingers. Because it's not effort that creates prosperity, but vibration. You can sweat, struggle, accumulate hours of work, and if your frequency is one of fear, insecurity, or never enough, that's what will keep repeating itself. Science proves this. Research on emotions shows that when humans are in a state of stress or anxiety, the brain activates a survival mechanism that narrows focus. It's as if the mind puts on a lens that only sees problems, risks, and threats. In this state, you fail to notice opportunities, don't see solutions, and lose connections that could change your life. In other words, the vibration of scarcity not only attracts more scarcity, but also blinds you to everything that could lead to abundance. And the opposite is also true. When you cultivate a vibration of trust, certainty, and gratitude, your brain expands its perception. It is in this state that you begin to notice people who can open doors, ideas that previously went unnoticed, solutions that were right in front of you, but which your previous frequency didn't allow you to see. The external world remains the same, but your way of seeing and interacting with it changes completely. This explains why some people, even without working so many hours, seem to multiply their results. They are connected to a level of perception that only opens when you vibrate abundance. I remember observing entrepreneurs who managed to expand their businesses almost naturally, while others, equally dedicated, struggled just to keep their doors open. The difference wasn't in effort, but in how they vibrated. Those who prospered were certain that there would always be resources, clients, and opportunities, and this certainty created the perfect environment for that to happen. Those who vibrated fear, on the other hand, were always busy, always exhausted, always running, but never moved forward, because they were aligned with the energy of struggle, and struggle only attracts more struggle. So, if until today you believed that the solution to your financial problems is simply to work more, it's important to understand that this is the most exhausting and least productive path. It's not that work isn't important, but physical work without the correct vibration only becomes weariness. Prosperity begins in the mind, in alignment with abundance, in the feeling that you deserve it, and that an infinite flow of opportunities already exists in your life. When this vibration becomes dominant within you, work ceases to be a battle and becomes a natural channel through which abundance can manifest. And life responds to this with situations, encounters, and results that seem impossible to those who still believe that only sweat is enough. Elvis Presley was a clear example of how money alone does not guarantee prosperity. He was one of the highest paid artists in the world, achieved global fame, and lived surrounded by luxury and opportunities few people could even imagine. But despite all the millions of dollars that passed through his hands, his life ended marked by financial difficulties, emotional instability, and choices that led him to ruin. The inevitable question is, how could someone who earned millions of dollars end up like this? The answer lies in what was happening inside him. Elvis never reprogrammed his mind to sustain wealth. He vibrated fear, insecurity, and scarcity, even when money seemed to come in abundance. This internal pattern is powerful because it shows that no matter the size of the fortune or the opportunity, if the mind is not aligned with prosperity, abundance is not sustained. Money can come in, but it also finds ways to go out, whether through excesses, poor management, destructive relationships, or even addictions that arise from the need to fill an internal void. Elvis vibrated lack, he vibrated imbalance, and the result was exactly that. A life marked by highs and lows where money was never able to bring true stability. This example should make us reflect deeply. How many times have you thought that if you suddenly won a large sum of money, all your problems would be solved? But would they really be? Studies show that most people who win the lottery return to their previous financial situation within a few years. This happens because the mind was not prepared to sustain abundance. The internal vibration continues to be one of scarcity, and this vibration finds ways to destroy even the biggest gains. It's easy to believe that prosperity is just a matter of how much money comes in, but Elvis shows us the opposite. Prosperity is above all a matter of mindset and vibration. He had everything on the outside, but internally he carried insecurities, fears, and self-sabotaging patterns. And internal energy always wins. It is what shapes what manifests in the external world. This example also reminds us that it's not enough to seek prosperity superficially, accumulating gains without changing what happens within us. If there isn't a vibrational alignment with abundance, money doesn't bring peace, doesn't bring stability, and not even happiness. The vibration of lack will always find a way to express itself, whether in wastefulness, poor decisions, or relationships that erode vital energy. Elvis is a living portrait of this reality, someone who had access to everything, but didn't have the mental foundation to sustain anything. Therefore, when looking at your own life, it's important to understand that true prosperity is not what you temporarily accumulate, but what you are capable of maintaining because your vibration is in harmony with it. It's not enough to simply achieve, you must learn to sustain. And that only happens when your interior is reprogrammed to believe that you deserve it, that you can, that abundance is natural, and that it doesn't depend on fear, excess, or control. What ruined Elvis was not a lack of talent, opportunities, or money, but a lack of a mindset capable of transforming wealth into something lasting. Oprah Winfrey is living proof that true change begins from within. She was born into extreme poverty, rejected, and marked by painful experiences from childhood. Everything around her seemed to signal a life of failure. Had she succumbed to the world's narrative, she might have replicated the same cycle of misery as countless others around her. But Oprah did something that completely changed the course of her life. She chose to reprogram her energetic frequency even before there was any external evidence of potential prosperity. When she had absolutely nothing, she chose to radiate as if abundance was already hers. When no one else believed, she believed in herself. This is the crucial point. Prosperity isn't something you achieve later. It's something you cultivate within yourself first. Oprah understood this intuitively. She began to behave, think, and feel as though she already lived in abundance, even when her external circumstances offered absolutely no confirmation of that reality. This decision created such a powerful, energetic alignment that the universe couldn't help but respond. Today she is a billionaire, not merely in terms of monetary figures, but also in influence, impact, and freedom. Not because of luck or a privileged background, but because she chose to alter the frequency she was emitting. And perhaps you're asking, how can one possibly vibrate abundance when life only presents challenges? The answer is simple, but it demands courage. You must choose to believe in the unseen before the seen can transform. The reality you experience today is merely a reflection of past vibrations. If you desire a different future, you must shift your vibration now, even if everything around you screams otherwise. Oprah is an inspiring example, demonstrating that where you come from is irrelevant. What truly matters is where you choose to vibrate. And it is here that I want to extend an invitation to you. If what I've shared so far resonates with you, if you feel this message is stirring something deep inside, then please like this video and subscribe now. This simple act creates a powerful ripple effect, allowing more people to receive this content and begin to awaken to the truth of abundance. When you do this, you not only strengthen this community of transformation, but you also send a clear signal to yourself that you are committed to changing your own frequency. Remember, the decision to prosper is always internal. You don't need to wait for external circumstances to improve before you can vibrate abundance. You only need to decide that the capacity to create, attract, and maintain prosperity already exists within you. Oprah proved this to the world, and if she succeeded, starting from absolute scratch, so can you. Everything begins with the vibration you choose to sustain now. Many people harbor a silent fear of money, as if it were something dangerous, something that could corrupt them or pull them away from what is pure. How many times have you heard that money changes people, or that the rich are greedy? These phrases, repeated countless times, create such a deep-seated negative association that even when you consciously desire prosperity, you might unconsciously be repelling it. It's as if one part of you yearns to attract more, while another part actively blocks it, fearful of what that abundance might signify. And the universe always responds to what dominates within you. The fear of money is one of abundance's greatest saboteurs, as it leads individuals to believe that prosperity risks losing something even more valuable: their essence, their values, their relationships. This internal conflict generates a contradictory vibration. On one hand, there's a conscious desire for more, a longing to build a better life. On the other, there's an unconscious apprehension that if this happens, it will invite envy, judgment, rejection, or even guilt. This kind of fear creates an invisible barrier, a sort of glass ceiling that an individual can never seem to break through. I've witnessed individuals turn down clear opportunities for growth simply because deep down they believed they weren't the type of person who handles money well. I've seen people who, upon starting to prosper, automatically found ways to lose everything, as if they couldn't sustain a more elevated life without feeling they were betraying something essential within themselves. This shows how paralyzing fear can be. The question then becomes, is money the problem? Or is the issue the way we've been conditioned to think about it? Money by itself has no morality. It is neither good nor bad. It merely amplifies what already exists within you. If you are generous, you will have more resources to be even more generous. If you are creative, you will have more means to expand your creativity. If you are a person of strong values, you will have greater capacity to positively impact the world. Studies in psychology show that the emotional relationship we create with money is often inherited. If you grew up in an environment where money was a source of arguments, scarcity, and suffering, there's a strong likelihood that you unconsciously still associate money with pain. This emotional memory makes you repel what you consciously desire. But when you grasp that money isn't the villain, that it's merely energy responding to your vibration, something shifts. You begin to see money as an ally, a multiplier of your intentions. Now consider this. How many times have you said or thought that you don't need a lot to be happy? This phrase may sound humble, but it often conceals a fear of wanting more and failing to achieve it, or a fear of gaining and then losing it. It's a defense mechanism. But the truth is that there is nothing wrong with desiring to prosper. The mistake lies in believing that money will destroy your true self. Money does not transform your character. It only amplifies your vibration. Therefore, what needs to be transformed is not money, but the way you relate to it. When you begin to replace the belief that money corrupts with the conviction that it amplifies the best within you, your vibration shifts. And as it shifts, you create space to attract without guilt, fear, or blockages. Money ceases to be a dangerous entity and transforms into a tool for expansion. And it is precisely at this juncture that abundance begins to flow naturally, because you are no longer fighting against it, but rather allowing it to find a safe space within you to flourish. I want to propose something to you that, at first glance, might seem so simple that your mind will reject it. And precisely because it seems too simple, many give up before experiencing the true power behind it. For the next 7 days, every single day, write 10 times on a sheet of paper the following affirmation: money comes to me with ease and frequency. Just that. But do it with intention, with presence, as if each word were a seed planted in the soil of your mind. Perhaps in the initial attempts you'll feel discomfort, or an inner voice might whisper, "That's a lie, that doesn't happen to me. I'm just deceiving myself." This resistance isn't proof that the method is ineffective. It's evidence that you're nudging the boundaries of old programming that resides within you. And it is exactly at this point that the key lies. Most people, when they encounter this resistance, stop. They give up. They declare this doesn't work. And then they revert to the same patterns, the same debts, the same cycle of struggle. But if you persevere, if you persist in repeating, writing, and truly feeling, gradually your subconscious mind begins to accept this idea as possible. It's as if you were installing new software within yourself. Consider this. You've spent decades internalizing limiting beliefs. Phrases like "money is hard work," "money isn't for me," "only the fortunate few acquire it." These phrases were ingrained through repetition, and the only way to overwrite a programming is with a new repetition, a new narrative that over time becomes stronger than the old one. In the initial days, perhaps nothing will change in your external world, and it is here that many fall into the trap of disbelief. But if you remain steadfast, a silent transformation occurs. You begin to notice that thoughts of money no longer create the same heaviness in your chest, no longer evoke the same fear. A different sensation arises, a thread of trust. And believe this, that small emotional shift is monumental because the vibration you sustain is now fundamentally different. It is at this moment that doors begin to open. An unexpected invitation, an opportunity you had never noticed, an old debt that is suddenly paid. You can call it coincidence, but in reality, it is the exact response to the new frequency you began to emit. Imagine this. For 7 days, you commit to this simple exercise. You write, you feel, you visualize. And on the 8th day, as you look back, you realize that something has shifted within you. Small or significant, but a change has occurred. And that is the signal that the seed has begun to sprout. I experienced this firsthand. There was a time when I couldn't save money at all. I would even increase my income, but problems seemed to arise in equal measure. It was only when I challenged myself to write prosperity affirmations every single day that a pattern began to unravel. In the beginning, it seemed like a foolish game, but one day I realized I was feeling different, lighter, as if the weight had been lifted from my shoulders. And it was precisely in this period that invitations, businesses, and checks began to appear from places I would never imagine. That's why I insist, accept this challenge. It's not merely writing for the sake of writing. It's about forging a new internal image, a new emotion. Do this for 7 consecutive days, 10 times each day. Do not skip, do not fail. Just try it and observe what happens. Because this seemingly trivial practice is, in fact, the most direct way to teach your subconscious mind to believe what your conscious mind desires. And when these two are in harmony, the universe has no other choice but to respond. After all, you do not attract what you want, you attract what you believe. And the moment you believe that money comes to you easily and frequently, it will. Now imagine what it would be like to wake up in peace, free from the burden of worrying about bills, realizing that income streams are emerging from previously unseen paths. Imagine having the freedom to choose what to do with your time, whom to be with, and where to go without the shadow of lack. This life begins with a simple exercise. For 7 days, perform 10 repetitions each day. Write, feel, live as if it were already true, and watch how the universe moves in your direction. There was a day when I needed to pay a bill and simply did not have enough to cover it. The most common reaction would be to despair, feel shame, fear, or even anger. That was exactly what I used to do, complain, blame the world, and believe there was no way out. But that day I decided to act differently. Instead of feeding into despair, I took a deep breath and thought, I will trust. The money will arrive. And believe me, within a few hours, I received a call from someone who had owed me money for years. That money was no longer part of my expectations. I had not even remembered it, and yet it appeared exactly when it was needed. Many would say that was a coincidence, but I learned to recognize that it was not. It was the direct consequence of a new vibration. When I stopped aligning myself with fear, stopped vibrating anxiety, and started emitting confidence, life found a way to respond to me. And that is how it always works. When you emit scarcity, events seem to conspire against you. Your tire goes flat, your refrigerator breaks, an unexpected expense arises out of nowhere. Have you ever noticed how these problems always appear in sequence, as if to prove that life is tough? That is not bad luck. That is synchronicity. It is your energy saying, I am ready for more lack, and the universe merely confirms it. Now, when you change your frequency, even if external circumstances have not yet shifted, you begin to become available to solutions that were previously invisible. That person you never had the courage to call suddenly pops into your mind. An opportunity that was in front of you the entire time finally catches your eye. The client who always said no comes back to seek you out. These things do not appear out of nowhere. They were always there. But you could not see them because your gaze was fixed on fear. I remember entire sleepless nights, thinking about how to pay the bills for the upcoming month. It was like a constant weight on my chest, as if there was not enough air. And the more I worried, the more problems appeared. It was a cycle that trapped me for years, until I understood. It is not the problem that keeps you trapped. It is your reaction to it. When you react with despair, you repeat the same vibration. When you decide to trust even without seeing a way out, you open space for something different to happen. And here is the most powerful detail. When I trusted that day, it was not just about the bill being paid. It was about a profound lesson. I understood that I no longer needed to live as a hostage to anxiety. It was as if a knot had come undone within me. I saw for the first time that external reality does not control what happens to me. It is my vibration that dictates the course, and this awareness brought not only relief, but also courage. Because if a simple act of trust was capable of attracting an unexpected solution, then I could make it a way of life. Perhaps you have already been through similar situations, accumulated bills, debts that seemed endless, moments when you felt there was no way out. But reflect, how many times suddenly did something emerge and you managed to resolve it? The difference is that most of the time you interpreted it as luck, as chance, and did not realize it was the consequence of your energy shifting, even if only for a few moments. Imagine if instead of trusting for a few minutes you could sustain that state every day. Imagine the number of solutions that would reveal themselves before you. Life does not respond to struggle. It responds to vibration. When you vibrate fear, everything around you seems to confirm that there is reason to be afraid. When you vibrate confidence, everything begins to align to prove that your trust makes sense. This is why some seem to live under a constant storm, while others, even when facing the same difficulties, find sunshine amidst the clouds. It is not luck. It is a vibrational choice, and this choice can be made at any moment, including now. With each situation that arises, you can ask yourself, will I react with fear or will I choose to trust? Because with every choice, you send a frequency to the universe, and the universe never fails to return exactly what you emit. That is what transformed my life on that day when I decided not to despair, and that is what can transform yours every time you choose to trust, even when it seems impossible. Science has already proven that what you feel about money alters how your brain interprets reality. Studies in psychology and neuroscience show that when you are in a state of constant stress or fear, your brain enters a mode called limited selective attention. In this state, you only perceive problems, risks, and dangers. It is as if you have a filter that blocks solutions, closing off your field of vision to opportunities. Now, when you are in a state of confidence, gratitude, or positive expectation, the brain activates areas linked to creativity and decision-making. You begin to see paths that previously seemed invisible. This explains why two people experiencing the same difficult situation have completely different results. One remains trapped in scarcity, while the other finds an unexpected way out. Research conducted by the University of California has shown that people who practice positive visualization and daily affirmations develop greater mental clarity and increase their perception of opportunities. They report feeling more energy, more motivation, and even greater ease in making financial decisions. This is because the mind, when trained to expect abundance, naturally aligns itself with behaviors and choices that generate abundance. It is as if by changing the internal vibration, the brain begins to open portals that were previously blocked. I myself have experienced this many times. There were periods when, even surrounded by possibilities, I simply could not see a way out. It was as if everything was dark. But when I started practicing visualization exercises daily, writing goals, repeating phrases of abundance, something happened within me. Suddenly ideas began to emerge. Contacts I had forgotten about started reaching out to me again, and stagnant businesses began to move forward. It was not luck. It was a shift in internal frequency that allowed me to see what had always been around me. It is curious to note how most people insist on believing that life is determined by external factors: the economy, the government, their boss, a lack of opportunities. But if that were truly the case, everyone living in the same country under the same conditions would be condemned to the same destiny. However, that is not what happens. Some prosper, others fail. The difference is not in the environment, but in how each person vibrates and interprets what they see. How many times have you heard of someone who lost their job and saw it as the end of the road? That person plunged into fear, and fear generated more blockages, more limitations. Now think of someone who lost the same job, but chose to see it as a chance to start something new. That person opened a business, changed fields, reinvented their career. The difference was in their vibrational state. The first person vibrated scarcity, the second person vibrated confidence. Science calls this priming, which is a mental conditioning that causes you to interpret reality according to what you expect to find. If you expect difficulty, your brain will reinforce all signs of difficulty. If you expect abundance, it will highlight the opportunities that were always there. This is powerful because it proves that it is not about blindly believing in something magical, but rather about aligning your mental and emotional state with what you wish to experience. Now reflect for an instant. How many chances have you already missed simply because you were vibrating fear? How many doors were open, but you did not enter because you were paralyzed by insecurity? And how many times did you make hasty decisions, driven by anxiety, and later realize that if you had waited just a little longer, everything would have resolved itself differently? The truth is that your vibration defines the quality of your choices, and your choices define the quality of your results. If you wish to prosper, you need to create the habit of putting your mind in a state of expansion, not contraction. This can be done through simple practices: daily writing of phrases that reflect the reality you desire, mentally visualizing what you want to achieve, feeling as if you have already achieved it. These exercises, which many underestimate, are in fact tools that mold the brain and subconscious to sustain a new frequency. And when this new frequency becomes dominant, life responds with absolute precision. Money, opportunities, and the right people do not appear because you force them, but because you become compatible with them. It is not a matter of believing only when you already see the result. It is a matter of believing beforehand, of feeling beforehand, of aligning beforehand. Because when you change your vibration, you inevitably change your reality. One of the greatest myths that society has repeated for generations is the belief that the harder you work, the more money you will earn. This is a dangerous lie that traps millions of people. Just look around. How many people do you know who wake before sunrise, work late into the night, put in overtime, sacrifice weekends, and yet remain in debt with the constant feeling that there's never enough money? And at the same time, how many have you seen who seem to work less, enjoy more freedom, and still live in abundance? What separates these two groups is not intelligence, nor effort, nor luck. It's mindset. It's vibration. I myself believed this myth for a long time. I spent years believing that if I just tried hard enough, if I sacrificed everything, financial results would follow. But what I got was frustration, exhaustion, and a life spinning in circles. Until I grasped a hard truth: physical effort does not guarantee prosperity. What guarantees prosperity is aligning your mind with the energy of abundance. You can paddle against the current your entire life, but you'll never get far if you don't change the direction of your internal flow. Constant struggle only creates more struggle. Scarcity breeds more scarcity. The vibration of fear attracts more situations that confirm that fear. This is the invisible cycle that traps so many. They believe they need to work harder, study more, sacrifice more, when in reality they are merely reinforcing the vibrational pattern of lack. That's why so many people reach the end of their lives exhausted, without energy, without time, and without money. They followed a formula that never worked. Once, while talking to a prominent entrepreneur who multiplied his fortune year after year, I asked him his secret. The answer was so simple it seemed absurd. I don't work to earn money. I think to attract money. That sentence changed everything for me. He wasn't talking about physical effort, he was talking about mental vibration. While many are busy trying to make money happen, he simply aligned himself with the frequency of prosperity, and ideas, contacts, and opportunities came to him. This is the difference between working against the current and flowing with it. Science has already proven that emotional state directly influences how the brain processes information. When you're in a state of scarcity, your brain sees fewer solutions, fewer ways out. You become blind to opportunities. However, when you're in a state of confidence and abundance, your perception expands. You see doors that once seemed locked. Therefore, it's not about how many hours you put into a job, but about what energy you put into your life. Think of someone who worked for decades in a company, sacrificing health, family time, and leisure. Many of these workers reach retirement without savings, depending on minimal assistance to survive. And on the other hand, think of people who started with nothing but dared to change their mindset. People who allowed themselves to believe they could create wealth through their ideas, talents, and vision. They didn't necessarily work more hours, but they worked differently, vibrating abundance, and that's what made the difference. The truth is, the world doesn't just reward those who work hard. The world rewards those who vibrate in harmony with what they desire. Effort without alignment is like running on a treadmill. You wear yourself out, but you go nowhere. Now, when you adjust your vibration, every step you take has a multiplying effect. Opportunities arise, partnerships form, ideas flourish. You attract instead of merely struggling, This is the significant difference between those who spend their entire lives battling and those who achieve financial freedom. It's not how much you strive, it's how you vibrate. If you continue to believe that wealth will only come with sweat and sacrifice, you will remain trapped in the same cycle of scarcity. But if you decide to change your frequency, life will begin to show you a much lighter, more abundant and natural path. And that path begins the moment you choose to abandon the idea of eternal struggle and embrace the truth that prosperity is, above all, a state of consciousness. Nothing changes externally until you change internally. It's a truth that can sound uncomfortable because the tendency is to believe the problem always lies with the government, the boss, the economy, or circumstances. But the reality is that the results you experience today are merely reflections of the vibration you've been sustaining over time. If you vibrate fear, insecurity, and scarcity, life responds by bringing you more of the same. If you vibrate confidence, abundance, and worthiness, circumstances begin to arrange themselves to confirm this new energy. It's simple, but it's not easy, because it demands the courage from you to take full responsibility for your reality. I know the weight this decision carries. When I was stuck in mediocre jobs, without prospects, in debt, and without believing in myself, it seemed impossible to accept that the solution wouldn't come from outside, but from within. However, it was precisely in that moment of greatest despair that I realized, as long as I waited for something external to change, I would be condemned to live the same life. And it was from that realization that everything began to transform. I decided I would no longer accept scarcity as my natural state. I decided I would start vibrating differently, even if nothing around me had yet changed. And the transformation was almost immediate. Not because the universe suddenly decided to favor me, but because I began to see opportunities that had always been there, yet were invisible to the old version of me. It's like tuning a radio. While you're on the wrong frequency, no matter how much you turn the dial, you never hear the right music. But when you finally find the correct tuning, the melody was always there, just waiting for you to connect. It's exactly the same with money, with relationships, with health. Abundance is always available, but it only reveals itself when you decide to align your vibration with it. And here's the most important point. This choice is entirely yours. No one needs to give you permission to prosper. No one needs to validate your decision to live in abundance. You don't need to wait for someone to tell you it's the right time. The right time is now. Because every time you postpone, you reinforce to your subconscious the idea that you're not ready, that you don't deserve it, that scarcity is still your reality. Realize the power of this. One single decision changes everything. When you decide to live in prosperity, your body responds with new energy, your words carry new weight, your actions begin to reflect confidence, and the external world inevitably follows suit. You might even doubt this process, but it's already happening with you every day. Your current life is proof of it. It is the exact reflection of what you've been believing, feeling, and emitting. So the question isn't whether it works, but whether you will finally choose to vibrate on a new pattern. Life doesn't wait. Every day you spend trapped in the same cycle of thoughts and emotions is one day less enjoying the freedom, tranquility, and choices you deserve. Imagine for an instant what it would be like to wake up tomorrow already feeling abundance even before opening your eyes. Imagine making decisions guided by the certainty that prosperity is inevitable. Imagine looking to the future without fear, but with enthusiasm. This reality isn't distant, it's available the exact moment you decide. Therefore, understand this. You don't need a perfect plan, you don't need more effort. You don't need to wait for something external to organize itself before you can prosper. You only need one firm, conscious choice. The choice to no longer vibrate scarcity. The choice to no longer feed thoughts that trap you. The choice to finally embrace who you were born to be. Someone prosperous, abundant, and free. The instant this decision is truly made, not just with the mind, but with the heart and soul, your vibration shifts, and when your vibration shifts, the entire universe moves in your direction. There is one aspect that few people realize when we talk about prosperity: how you deal with gratitude. Most believe that gratitude is something you express after receiving, like a gesture of politeness or acknowledgement. But the truth is that gratitude is the vibration that precedes abundance. It's what prepares the ground for money to flow to you. When you only give thanks for what you already have, you limit your frequency to the present. But when you start giving thanks for what you desire, as if it were already a reality, you open such a powerful vibrational field that it attracts exactly what you are grateful for. I vividly remember a period when I was in debt, with no way out, and the suffocating feeling that there would never be enough money. My first reaction was to complain, feel anger, and ask myself, why me? Until I realized that every time I did that, I only reinforced the energy of scarcity. So, even with overdue bills, I began practicing gratitude for things that weren't yet in my life. I gave thanks for the money that was on its way, for the opportunities that hadn't yet appeared, for the financial freedom my heart desired. At first, it seemed crazy, like self-deception, but over time, something shifted. Not only did I feel lighter, but I also started noticing doors opening. It was as if, by being grateful in advance, I was signing an invisible contract with the universe. Research in positive psychology confirms this effect. Studies show that people who keep a gratitude journal develop more resilience, more optimism, and even better physical health. And all of this directly impacts your relationship with money, because when you are in a state of gratitude, your brain expands its perception of possibilities. You see solutions, identify opportunities, and attract people who resonate with that same energy. Gratitude is a natural magnet for abundance. How many times have you said phrases like, "When I earn more, I will be grateful," or "When my life gets better, then I will truly give thanks"? That is the mistake. You do not need to wait for the outcome to feel gratitude. You need to feel it now, because that feeling is what creates the result. When you choose to be thankful today, even if you do not yet see anything different, you start to vibrate with abundance. And that vibration inevitably brings circumstances, people, and opportunities that confirm what you have been grateful for. So, try a simple test. Every day before going to sleep, write down 3 things you are grateful for, including things you do not yet have but wish to attract. Write as if it is already true. Feel that gratitude in your heart as if it is real. It could be the freedom of no longer worrying about bills. It could be a comfortable home. It could be the peace of mind of having extra money in the bank. If you dedicate yourself to this practice for a few weeks, you will notice that your mind changes, your emotions change, and surprisingly, your reality starts to change too. Because gratitude is not just a feeling, it is a frequency. And when you vibrate at that frequency, you inevitably attract what corresponds to it. Now reflect, what would happen if, instead of vibrating complaint, fear, or lack, you decided to vibrate gratitude every single day? What would happen if you started to act, speak, and feel like someone who already lives in abundance? The answer is simple. Your life would align with that abundance. Because gratitude is not a symbolic gesture. It is one of the most powerful keys to re-educating your mindset and opening the doors to prosperity. With every new choice you make, with every thought you decide to nourish, you are shaping the course of your financial and personal life. And that is exactly why this content should not just stay with you. Think of someone special, someone you know could benefit from these words, and share this video with that person. Perhaps it is precisely the message they need to hear to completely transform how they view money and prosperity. I am deeply grateful to have you here with me, for dedicating your time to expanding your consciousness, and I want you to know that I am already preparing something even more powerful for you. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.